Hello and welcome back to Sunday Vibes on this very special day indeed, guys. Less than 12 hours to kick off of the European Championship final of 2024. And guess who's there? England. Who'd have thought it?
Who'd have thought it?
Well, actually, you did predict it before the tournament.
I did predict it, yeah.
You said England to win.
Yes, me. Who'd have thought it? I did say England to win, and I'm still saying England to win. Got to win tonight.
I love the positivity. How do you reflect on, so we're filming this on Thursday, as you know, 3 p.m. How do you reflect on last night's dramatic win against the Netherlands?
Amazing. Just the knockout stages in general for England has just been such a ride, hasn't it?
Yes.
You know, it was hard to be overly positive despite the dramatic scenes against Slovakia. It was, the Switzerland game was so tense as well. But every single game has been won in dramatic fashion. And last night, England had the performance to back it up as well, especially in that first half. I think England is the best 45 minutes we've seen from England at a major tournament in a long time, actually. I think in some ways it was more impressive than anything we saw at the 2022 World Cup, because they were up against a pretty solid opposition in the Netherlands, even if the Netherlands midfield on paper wasn't a match for England. The defence certainly was. We'd seen what Xavi Simons and Cody Gakpo have been capable of this tournament too. Brilliant first 45. Fortunate to get the penalty. Obviously went behind as well, but those subs, Cole Palmer and Ollie Watkins, to combine for that goal, and what a goal from Ollie Watkins. Given he
0.06 XG, I think it was.
Not really.
0.06.
It's so, I didn't actually appreciate when it went in. Just the angle of it. The angle is mad. And I think, I was certainly, when that ball comes into him, I thought he'd made a mistake taking the touch on rather than holding it up and waiting for someone to kind of overlap. But, what a moment for a player who, hadn't played since the Denmark game. Only 2 years ago was still having his kind of credentials as a Premier League striker questioned.
Yeah.
And off the back of a season in which I think he was the best centre forward in the Premier League, one of the best centre forwards, certainly one of the most productive centre forwards in Europe, to have a moment like that, just amazing.
It was really special, wasn't it? And there was a number of players that really stepped up as well. I thought Kobbie Mainoo first half was absolutely unreal. Saka, as usual, just so consistently good for England. I think he really set the tone. And Phil Foden had a great first half as well. Did slightly fade in the second half. Look, they packed the midfield.
They all did, didn't they?
Yeah, they dropped 10 metres deeper. It was much harder. It got quite attritional. It felt like England was slightly losing initiative. And then Southgate makes a change. Finally, it did feel like maybe it should have come 5-10 minutes earlier. But what an impact. And we'll get on to England's performers throughout this episode. We are, of course, filming our team of the tournament for this Euros. It's a great time to drop it. Obviously, tonight's game will probably shape who ends up winning player of the tournament, maybe. But team of the tournament probably should be kind of settled by now already. So let's kick off with goalkeeper. Yep. Let's see how much. We also haven't talked beforehand. Have no idea. We could have exactly the same 11. We could have an entirely different 11.
Yeah.
Let's kick off with goalkeeper. Who have you gone with, Mikey?
Yeah. First of all, I just realised I brought my England shirt in today. I forgot to bring it on set. But so big mistake from me there. But
You are wearing white.
I'm wearing white. Yeah. It's all good. And I will be wearing an England shirt as you're watching this. Most definitely. Goalkeeper. I feel like goalkeeper was one of the more easy ones. I think it's actually by quite a long distance Georgi Mamardashvili.
I was in agreement
for Georgia. I think just an amazing tournament from him. I think you called it before, actually, as one of the players to watch this tournament, in terms of someone who was going to always be very crucial to Georgia's chances of doing anything. And Georgia, went out in the last 16 as the people's champions of this Euros. Amazing story. That 2-0 win over Portugal in particular, but they were so entertaining throughout the tournament. And without his heroics at the back, or in goal, I should say, Georgia just don't make it out that group, and they don't allow that. They wouldn't be allowed to play with that kind of freedom. But I think it was 79% save rate, top for post-shot expected goals. He should have conceded 12 goals by XG, by post-shot XG, over 4 games. So what's that? 3 goals a game. The next most in the tournament was Verbruggen for the Netherlands,
Was
on
it?
7.
That's interesting.
But obviously Verbruggen played 2 more games than Mamardashvili. But yeah, and conceded, just over half the post-shot XG that Georgia did. So yeah, like such a I can't really think of a goalkeeper who's been under as much pressure as he has been in an international tournament, and yet Georgia made it into the last 16. Beaten by the most impressive team at this tournament.
Took
Spain.
the lead as well.
Took the lead too. But I just think it has to be him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, prior to the Spain game, he saved 16 of the 17 shots on target that he faced. And actually, Georgia, as you're right to point out, were facing a lot of traffic in the group stage, despite having, on paper, one of the easiest groups in the tournament, definitely by FIFA rankings. Remember doing that video prior to a ball being kicked. They faced, I think he faced 76 shots, which has only been topped once in a group stage in Euros history by Latvia in Euro 2004. Don't even remember, Latvia being there.
I do remember that actually, vaguely.
Really?
Vaguely,
Love that.
I think they might have scored in their first game. Anyway,
huge. Yeah. But either way, Mamardashvili, massive tournament, massive man. I think save of the tournament. I think it was from Dallo. It's just this arcing shot into the top right-hand corner, and he just plucks it out. Well, he doesn't pluck it out, he tips it over. Sensational.
Amazing.
Well-deserved goalkeeper of the tournament for us. Also give a maybe shout out to Donnarumma. I thought he had a good tournament as well after a difficult season.
Unai Simon's
been solid.
Jordan Pickford
for sure.
Aside from the Xavi Simons goal.
Hasn't been as busy as Mamardashvili. I think that's
I think that's he's just had by far the most to do, and has still just sustained such good form.
Yeah, and also shout out lots of the representatives of the smaller nations as well. I think they really delivered this tournament. Slovakia, Slovenia, Turkey, Georgia. They all had their moments. I say smaller, no disrespect meant by that. Let's move on to right back. I think this might be a little bit more contentious. I've actually gone with Jules Koundé of France.
Interesting.
I think the French defence was pretty remarkable. Really, it was probably the only area of the French team that operated anywhere close to its best level, and I include that with Upamecano. I thought he had a really good tournament. Saliba too, which we'll probably come on to, and Mike Maignan was brilliant as well. But I thought Jules Koundé was really quite special, to be honest. He played the joint most minutes in the French squad, led his side for tackles, and he also created 11 chances, which was only topped by Ousmane Dembélé in the French squad. And prior to the semi-final, he was their top chance creator. I think he's not a natural right back, but actually he's performed that role really effectively for Barcelona, particularly the season before last. He was really solid for Barcelona. Maybe had a slight dip in performance levels last year, but he was back to his best this year. And the French team weren't offering a lot going forward at all in this tournament. Really underperformed, I would say. Quite surprised that Deschamps has been given another 2-year contract to the World Cup. I thought it could be a nice time to say goodbye, but he does deserve respect for everything he's done for them. But Jules Koundé, I think, was a worthy inclusion, although I was close to picking Joshua Kimmich. Is that who you went for? Kimmich, yeah. What was you thinking there?
I just think he's been the most influential right back at the tournament. I think there's a few shouts here. I think João Cancelo, when he was on the pitch for Portugal was brilliant. I thought he was one of their standouts. Stefan Posch as well for Austria. I think I know you're a long time fan of his, Diggs. I think he had a brilliant tournament as well. Obviously, unfortunately, Austria went out in the last 16, so it's hard for them to kind of pick out anyone of those from that sample size, although I guess Mamardashvili a bit of an outlier in that regard. Who else? Koundé was down there for me. Even Dumfries, I think, has been decent. Obviously, highly influential in the semi-finals. If Netherlands come through that game,
it's one of their men of the match, really.
Then Dumfries, massive for them. But I just think Joshua Kimmich, Germany, were one of the 3 or 4 best teams, probably among the 2 or 3 best teams at the tournament. I think that they would have had a very good shout at being in the final had they not come up against Spain in the quarters. Great shout at winning it. I think they were, really, aside from the Switzerland game, really, really impressive throughout the campaign. And Kimmich, who already had a very good relationship with Nagelsmann from the Bayern days. One of the he was kind of his main ally, wasn't he, in the dressing room? Showed why he, despite spending all those years in midfield, remains one of the best right backs in the game. I think he, obviously got 2 assists. What sticks out in the memory is that brilliant header down for Florian Wirtz's equaliser against Spain. Just the leap
really nice
on
play.
the man, amazing. But he was creating almost 3 chances a game from right back. He was taking over a shot a game from right back. He's actually, even now, despite having played a game less than a number of players, still tops the rankings for the amount of passes into the penalty area. He's just such a complete footballer, and in some ways, you kind of want to see him play more for Bayern at right back at this rate.
Schaupalini's arrival might mean he
may well mean he does, unless he's given a freer role in midfield. But
there's also speculation that he might leave. I think PSG are strongly looking at him.
Yeah, I feel.
I wouldn't swap Bayern for PSG.
He does. I mean, he's well within his rights to move, but you just want him to go to another truly elite club. I don't know, but anyway, that's why he makes it for me. I just think he's been the most influential, both from a defensive not necessarily just from a defensive standpoint, but in terms of being a kind of complete fullback. I think he probably has been the best at the tournament. My left back shout, I think, has also had a great tournament, but Kimmich is just the real deal. Yeah,
well, we've got our first debate, Koundé versus Kimmich. Get in the comments, guys. Which one do you want to see entering our team of the tournament? Right, let's start with centre-backs. Look, I was all set, because I did most of my research for this yesterday, to include Jakub Virgil of Slovenia.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive tournament. Most clearances, had an amazing tackle success rate as well. Now got 53 caps for Slovenia as well. Played a lot in midfield for Udinese over the last few years as a defensive midfielder, but I thought he was an absolute rock at the back. And Slovenia, taking Portugal to extra time, taking them to penalties. They, drew all their 4 games, really. It was a remarkable performance from Slovenia, to be totally honest. No one really saw it coming, and everyone was expecting, it to be Jan Oblak to be exceptionally busy. Look, he had some saves to make, but I think Bijol was a big reason behind the fact that he wasn't swamped. It didn't necessarily click at the other end of the pitch as we necessarily expected. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's linked to the move this summer. To be honest, he was that impressive. But on the basis of last night, I've changed. I've got an England representative in there early. I've got Mark, the Superman Mark Guehi.
I thought you were about to say Mark his middle name, which I don't
know his middle name. Unfortunately, I should have done my research on that. But I think he's been sensational. To be honest, we talked about him pre-tournament. I think in our show was like players that could earn big moves on the back of the tournament. The fact that he was going to start every game for England, such a well-publicised team, such a much talked-about team, he was going to enter the shop window, really, you thought, and Palace will be determined to keep hold of him, especially after losing Elise. But I think he's been brilliant, under the sort of pressure he was under going into this tournament as well. And England haven't really missed Harry Maguire, which I still think if Harry Maguire had been fit, he probably would have started and probably deserved to start as well on the basis of his performances for England over the last few years. But for England not to miss Harry Maguire and Mark Guehi to seamlessly adapt to John Stones, to playing alongside John Stones, rather, I think there was one error where he slipped over, but he still recovers. Even last night, there was I think Gakpo was going through, he falls over and then still gets up and manages to make the block. That was
real old school
centre-back
play, wasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. I think only John Stones has averaged more passes per game than him. He's barely put a foot wrong. I think he's been brilliant. And look, it was a big call to introduce him back in last night after the way Konza performed against Switzerland, but Guehi justified it. And he's one of the reasons that I do have a little bit of hope going into tonight's game, because I do think he's playing that well at the back.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, England are winning it, let's face it. But just to add with Mark Guehi, to step into the shoes of Maguire, the fact that the worry for England going into this tournament was the defence, and the fact that really throughout the tournament, the worry has actually been the attack, which is ridiculous. The underperformance of the attack, especially up until the last game really against the Netherlands, has been the story, and that's testament to Mark Guehi's solidity at the back. During a tournament in which Trippier's come in for criticism, or at least the use of Trippier on the left has come in for criticism. Kyle Walker has come in for an awful lot of criticism. There's been talk about John Stones not being at quite the level that he has been in the past. Mark Guehi is the only England player who has escaped scrutiny in that sense.
Was he
or at least out of the regular starters. Yeah, he makes mine
that
as well. Like, I mean, this is the thing. Like, yeah, like yourself, Dukes. I guess the fact that he also wasn't involved in the quarter-final as well, and we didn't know what kind of performance we were going to see from England against the Netherlands. I didn't initially have him in there. I was tossing up between Van Dijk, who actually, even in defeat last night, I thought was absolutely superb. Saliba as well. I was tossing up between those two. Fabian Schär as well for Switzerland.
Akanji.
And Akanji, who is my partner for Mark Guehi. I think Akanji has been the outstanding centre back of the tournament. I'm not sure whether it's just. I feel like the games in which I feel like of all the games I watched, I feel like Switzerland's kind of big defensive performances were ones that I kind of just really honed in on.
Yeah.
And Akanji, I feel like in every single Switzerland game I watched, made a kind of match-saving block. I think he made 6 blocks in total. All of them were blocks from shots. And I think, sorry, I've got it down here. I will have to look at my notes. Yeah, only Rudiger and Demiral matched him for blocked shots of players who made the quarterfinals. And I think in general, I think Schär and Rodriguez both had kind of bigger defensive numbers than him. But I think that Switzerland spine of Sommer, Akanji and Saka, and I guess you could put Bolo there as well, who I thought had a really superb tournament. Really happy for him. He was so important to that. And I don't know, he's somewhat like, I know he plays for Man City and he's been, he has in general been a great signing for them, but he was a member of that Man City team who actually criticised quite a lot last season. I think partly because he was often put in midfield by Pepe, and I've never thought that he's very well suited to that kind of role. But as a pure centre back, I think it's really hard to fault him. And yeah, just an absolutely magnificent tournament from him. But it's been, I think this is one thing. This tournament has, there's a, for good reason, this tournament has been seen as a little bit dull. But I think it's just because it has been a defensively very, very good tournament,
and very few strikers, which we'll get on to.
Yeah, very
really
few
shone.
Strikers. But I think it was John McKenzie from Tifo, I guess. Yeah, you can still call it Tifo, can't you? Because one of the channels called Tifo. Anyway, I digress. I think he put maybe like a week ago tweeted that it's been a great tournament for mid-block enjoyers, which is incredibly nerdy. But I did like it because it was like, yeah, it's true, and not that necessarily that has to do much with why I picked Akanji, but I guess it's just, I think it just goes to show that I think there's been a lot of outstanding defensive players in this tournament. And defensive organisation, and Akanji's been one of the great organisers.
Fair. I didn't actually consider Akanji, but I kind of regret not giving him further thought, really. But I went with William Saliba. I just think he's been faultless, to be honest. And you look at the France conceded the fewest shots per game, shots against per game, and the opponents that they actually faced: Austria, Netherlands, Belgium, Portugal, Spain. It was like a really tough run with some, he's gone from facing Lukaku to then Ronaldo to then Morata. And I think I think Lukaku had 1 shot. Morata didn't have a single shot in the France game. And Ronaldo had 3 shots in 120 minutes against France, only one of which was on target. And he had the second best pass accuracy in the entire tournament behind Orel Mangala. And I actually do think, it's rare to put a centre-back amongst the sort of performances of the tournament, but I do think his performance against Lukaku in the Belgium game was one of the best individual battles and most one-sided battles that I've seen this tournament as well. It was like Nico Williams versus Italy-esque and Yamal versus France the other day. Like, it really was that level, I thought. And William Saliba, I think, elevated his game to a new level. Of course, there was chat online afterwards about he still hasn't got over the line, he still hasn't won a trophy. This is mainly in the FD WhatsApp group, winding up George and Temps and Dave Jackson. But it's a nonsense, really. I think everyone appreciates that if he's not the best centre-back in the world, he's certainly in the top 3 or 4 now. It's very difficult to argue with, and he's got such a massive future. I thought it was a magnificent tournament, especially given before a ball was kicked, people were like, is it going to be Upamecano and Konate?
Yeah.
No one really expected Saliba to even play.
Well, that was a big thing, wasn't it? And this time Deschamps didn't need an injury in the side to actually come to his senses and pick the best player in the position. Just very quickly before we move on from centre back, someone who I forgot to mention I think we have to give big props to Pepe as well. He had an amazing tournament for Portugal. Not completely
my
faultless.
doppelganger.
Not complete. Yeah, absolutely. Not completely faultless, but generally speaking, was an absolute rock at the back for. And in fact, was Portugal's most faultless centre back. Playing alongside some really young players. 41 years old. Magnificent, man, like absolutely magnificent. Like in the Slovenia game, in the France game as well, like to keep clean sheets across 120 minutes in those two games, and deal with the kind of traffic, and especially the quality of traffic he was up against France. Just got to give him massive props.
Especially because people were expecting maybe Antonio Silva or Inacio to be Ruben Dias's partner, and actually it was Pepe just keeping it going.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's kind of, it says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, I think Ronaldo, for all his faults, probably did get a bit too much stick in the kind of last 16, because I think actually it wasn't like the World Cup where he actually kind of was really kind of
like taking down
holding back Portugal. I don't think he did. He was petulant and he was arrogant to take on.
I don't think he played that badly,
but I think his all-round game was fine. But anyway, given that there was a lot of scrutiny on Ronaldo for another, and there was a lot of talk about how Ronaldo, is well past his best and everything. It's like Pepe, 2 years older than Ronaldo, and he's just I just don't know when Pepe will actually retire. Like he is still close to the top of his game. I feel maybe I'm being exaggerating here, because obviously he did win multiple. He wouldn't get into this Real Madrid team now, but to still be that influential in a side filled with star players at that age is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and sad to see him emotional after the France exit as well. Yeah, great servant if that is then for him at international level. Let's move on to left back. I've gone with Marc Cucurella.
Interesting.
I think it's one of the stories of the tournament, if I was totally honest. I saw the first lineup for that opening game against Croatia, and I thought, where is Alex Grimaldo? The form left wing back, one of the form players in Europe last season, only lost one game, of course, all year. Played 50-odd games for Bayer Leverkusen, unbeaten Bundesliga season. We don't need to go over it all over again. He was sensational last year. If it was done purely on performance level, he'd be top 5, top 6, top 7 shouts for Ballon d'Or, really, Alex Grimaldo, if it was only done on that club season, in my opinion, anyway. So Marc Cucurella getting the nod from De La Fuente was an interesting call. De La Fuente has managed Spain youth teams, and Cucurella was one of his stalwarts in the under-21 side. I think Cucurella played, 11 games for the under-21 side, which is actually quite a lot. Most players, do a few games there and then get instantly promoted. But obviously with the standard of left-backs that Spain have had, Jordi Alba, etc., he's kind of been held back. But I think he's been brilliant in this tournament. It's been the form of his career. I think he's averaged over 3. I think it's about 3.5 defensive actions per 90, creating over 1.3 chances or 1.3 chances per 90. He's been absolutely brilliant. I thought one of the performances of the tournament, again, I come into was his game against Italy. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. That link up with Nico Williams has felt very, very natural, and he looks so comfortable stepping into midfield now and helping out Fabian Ruiz on that side, and picking out some excellent balls as well. I think he's been absolutely brilliant, and with Ben Chilwell's future at Chelsea seeming a little bit uncertain, Ian Maatson obviously having to part of the club, Chelsea will hope this Cucurella form continues, and I really hope it does as well, because I think he's come in for some quite unfair flack at times in this tournament. In this tournament, in his Chelsea career. And Spain, we talk about most goals in this tournament, most shots per game, I think, as well. They've been brilliant to watch going forward, and Cucurella, the control he's offered and the base that he's offered with his passing, I think he's been crucial to that.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Cucurella, he's almost like definition of a system player, like obviously coming through at Barca. But then, the way that he thrived under Graham Potter at Brighton and then floundered a little bit at the start of his Chelsea career, or throughout a ton of his Chelsea career so far. Obviously, under Potter as well for some of that. But generally speaking, I think that, the I guess the array of managers at Chelsea have had, the lack of continuity there, and I think just generally the system not necessarily being, at least on a consistent basis, cut out for him at Chelsea, I think says a lot. And I think, like you said, playing under a manager who's known him from a young age, and I think, just playing in a system which, if Spain had, if De La Fuente had a different idea, then I think Grimaldo could have been number one there. But ultimately, he's been playing as a wing back for Leverkusen, and a lot of attacking responsibility was it has to be given to him when he's on the pitch. Whereas Cucurella is far more of a kind of ball progressor from deep.
And happened to play like a kind of background role, whereas Alex Grimaldo even last season was popping up on the right wing. He was popping up as a number 10. He had a real free reign.
Absolutely, and you don't really want to bring him into a side just to kind of limit him in that way. And Cucurella, even at Brighton, never had particularly massive attacking numbers, and was always most impressive when he was kind of around the halfway line and given the opportunity just to pick out players, recycle possession. He is quite a tidy footballer in that sense, but is never going to be your running down the left wing, overlapping and cutting, producing multiple cutbacks a game. That just isn't the kind of player he is. In a Spain team where really the job is to let Nico Williams shine. He's done that absolutely brilliantly. I feel like I was repeating a lot of what you were saying.
No, it was good.
But it was between Cucurella and my pick, but I did go for Nuno Mensch. I just think
great quarter-final.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't
brilliant.
like his dive.
No, but but I mean, he was just in the knockout stages in general. Brilliant. I think he completed 7 dribbles across the 2 games against Slovenia and France, and his defensive numbers were huge as well. I think it was 17 tackles and interceptions across the tournament. I think that's only second to Palhinha in the Portugal squad. I think N'Golo Conte managed 18 across the tournament as well. So super defensively astute. Just such an active fullback. It's kind of, if he hadn't already cemented his place as one of the best left backs in the world, then he certainly has now. I thought I kind of wanted to give a Portugal player a spot here, and I think I don't know. I think your shout of Cucurella is probably the more solid one, but I've also given I've given a lot of Spain players spots coming up.
Okay,
obviously, and I didn't want Spain to completely dominate this team. And I think Nuno Mensch has been great.
I get the logic. Right, midfield. I assume, have you got a more defensively minded midfielder, or have you just gone pure attack?
I mean, do you want me to start with my most defensive? I know it's not too bad.
Yeah, go on then.
There's not Fabio Ruiz is in there early doors. It was a toss up between him and Rodri. And Rodri has been amazing, and Spain have been amazing, and Rodri's obviously the best defensive midfielder in world football. But Fabio Ruiz has just been that little bit more influential than him. Obviously, 2 goals, 2 assists. His performance in the first half against Croatia set the tone, I think, for Spain's entire tournament. That defence-splitting pass into Morata, that's one of the best assists of the tournament.
Yeah.
And then his goal, is one of the best goals of the tournament. Just absolutely, magisterial in that game. And he's, on the defensive end, he's, only been slightly less involved than Rodri in terms of balls into the final third, progressive passes. He's been better than Rodri, and one of the best players in the tournament. I just think as an all-round, he has been the best all-round midfielder at the tournament, I think.
I think he's got a shout for player of the tournament.
Yeah, certainly, absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of, if Spain win, then it's a toss-up between a number of players. So I've gone for him.
He was
first
in mine.
off. Yeah, okay, sweet. So
we're in agreement.
Okay, cool. Who else?
Go for it.
What for my next?
Fine.
Okay.
Okay. I will go my more defensive-minded midfielder. Yeah. He's not really a defensive midfielder, but I went with Toni Kroos. I think he had to get in. Yeah. I think he had to get in. Most passes completed in the entire tournament. Second most long balls completed in the entire tournament. Behind Jordan Pickford. That includes goalkeepers.
Crazy, man.
Just absolutely mad.
Crazy.
Only Yamal and Eriksen have created more chances than Toni Kroos. He, of course, hasn't played a semi-final. Bear that in mind as well. Most passes into the final third. It was just like...
There was a point in this tournament.
Brilliant.
There was a point in this tournament. I think it might have been after the group stage of the last 16, when Toni Kroos, I think, had produced almost double what any other player had produced in terms of balls into the final third. It was frightening. And his group stages were just
so shot creating actions are either shots or passes that directly lead to a shot. I think it's kind of lost sometimes, but shot creating actions per 90. Toni Kroos is 6th. Yeah. Amongst all the forwards that you've seen in this tournament, that is not normal. I think he had an outrageously good tournament. Shame that he bowed out in the way he did. I thought it was a nasty tackle on Pedri, to be honest. I don't want to go too far on it, but I didn't think it was a great challenge. But what a career he's had. And to bow out at that level there's very few players that have ever gone out at a higher level, winning a Champions League and being one of the outstanding midfielders at the Euros as well. I think football will miss him a lot. Real Madrid will certainly miss him a lot. That control that he offers, I thought he had to be in.
Leaving at the peak of his powers. Just such a joy to watch. I think he is one of my favourite midfielders to watch of the modern era. His passing, his passing game is just up there with the very best ever. Leaves at the top of his game.
He made your team?
I was like, he probably deserves it.
Oh.
But
you got a cheeky look in your eye.
No bias here, but just ahead of tonight, Kobbie Mainoo's in my midfield. Look, it's a ridiculous shout, and it's obviously is there bias involved? No, complete objectivity involved with this one. But I just think, with it's been hard to praise England much up until the semi-finals. It's been hard to praise England much, but I think if there's one thing that really has changed things for England, as well as the change in shape, it's been the settling on Kobbie Mainoo as Declan Rice's partner. And I wasn't necessarily all for it at the start of the tournament. I thought Adam Wharton was a more natural fit next to Declan Rice, especially in a 4-2-3-1. And I still kind of believe that. But obviously, Wharton never got his chance. But Kobbie has taken his chance at every single turn. He obviously came on in that first game against Serbia, but then really got that chance against Slovenia and coming on at half time, and kind of being there and seeing him live and the difference that he made to that team in that game was amazing to see, and amazing to see a teenager have that kind of impact. And if it wasn't for Lamine Yamal being Lamine Yamal, being one of the greatest, most exciting teenagers we've ever seen in the history of football, let's face it, blessed by the god himself, Messi, then Kobbie Mainoo would be the teenager that people would be talking about at this tournament, even though he hasn't been a consistent start throughout the Euros. And he has played in kind of 45-minute bursts. We saw that against both Switzerland and the Netherlands. His influence did wane in the second half, but the impetus that he gave England in both of those games was really, really invaluable. And I think that first half against the Netherlands, he made 3 really, really important tackles in the Netherlands half. But at points in play where the Netherlands could have transitioned. And were going to transition and could have really hurt England, and that was, that was where England were going to be hurt by the Netherlands was in transition, especially in that first half. Once anyone got past Rice, then England did look really vulnerable at the back. You saw that for the Xavi Simons goal, as good as a strike as it was. That was where England were hurt. It was as soon as you were past Declan Rice, and for Kobbie's ability to sweep up in the kind of in the pressing stage of England's defence there was massive. And of course on the ball he's been really inventive as well.
Constantly in space as well.
Yeah, constantly in space. Not
throughout the whole first half we were like, give it to Kobbie.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, and it didn't even feel like I was just saying that as a United fan. It felt like it was just like he was just always in space. So
it's a fair shout.
I think
he's got a claim, but I'm putting Tony Kroos.
Yeah, I think Tony Kroos does deserve it, especially after the year that he's had as well. But I think if there was any England player aside from Guehi who had a shout here, well, no, there are obviously Bukayo Saka has a shout, but we'll get onto that. But yeah, I just had to put him in. I'm trying to think of other. There are obviously a number of other midfielders who have had really impressive tournaments.
I've got a couple to shout out. Yeah. Actually, well, I've got one in particular to shout out. Basically, my more creative midfielders. So I've got Fabian Ruiz and I've got Kroos and I've got one player playing in front of them. And I wanted to give a shout out to Arda Güler. I thought he was absolutely brilliant for Turkey. A Turkish side that people I think had slight PTSD from the Dark Horses shouts of 3 years ago. But I think he was brilliant this tournament, to be honest. Obviously, an unreal goal versus Georgia, but creating dangerous moments in pretty much every game he played, and he carried on that form from late in the season with Real Madrid, where I think he scored in his final 3 games of the season for Real Madrid. And they've now got just a bit, it's not a problem, it's a great problem to have, but you've got to get this guy involved somehow, and yet there's so many
him and Rodrigo
options
on the right. What an amazing problem to have.
It would be brilliant.
I can't remember who was saying it. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It might have been JJ Bull or someone on the saying that he could see Arda Güler actually, as he matures, becoming more of like a kind of Modric-esque midfielder, and he's
like a tempo setter.
Yeah, and he certainly, a kind of tempo setter / playmaker, like, and someone who can just carry the ball through midfield, and like, you can kind of see that, but really, you do kind of just want to see him on the right and just like terrorising defences.
His first touch is just almost nearly
so
always perfect. So he was my creative midfielder shout, but actually, I've gone with the big man. I've gone with Dani Olmo.
Yeah, so
I think it has to be. Look, 3 goals, 2 assists, some really high quality goals as well. Obviously, people are talking, as they should, about Yamal's goal the other night against France, but it's kind of gone under the radar that Olmo scored a probably goal of the tournament contender as well. Yeah. It was really, really special. Huge goal versus Germany as well. Came off the bench in that game, then provides the assist for Mikel Merino's winner. And I think his goal contributions, he's having a goal contribution every 58 minutes or something like that.
Crazy.
Absolutely remarkable. And it's there. There's a release clause in his contract until Saturday, as you're watching this, the 20th of July, for 60 million euros. Look, he's had a lot of injury issues over the last few years, but whenever he plays for Leipzig, there is so much quality. He scored a hat-trick in that, Super Cup? Just before the start of last season. Everyone expected him to have a massive breakout year, then got injured. It was a real shame. But there is so much technical quality there. He's got versatility. I think he'd be a brilliant signing for a club like Arsenal, who need depth on both wings. He can cover for Odegaard in midfield as well. I put it on Twitter the other day, but I think he'd be sensational at Arsenal. I do think they've got slightly other priorities, though. I think they are looking for a more defensive-minded midfielder, or at least more of an all-round midfielder, and it looks like Mikel Merino's their guy. Calafiori looks like he's coming in as well. So he doesn't feel like their absolute priority, but Dani Olmo, sensational tournament.
Yeah. There's not really much more to say on him. I think what solidified his place in this team for me is just the fact that international football, international tournaments are all about moments, right? They're all about moments. And Dani Olmo has had the moments. Quick shout out to Jude Bellingham there, because he's obviously had his. He had a huge moment. As another player who's in this, who would otherwise be contending for that attacking midfield spot, but just hasn't been consistent enough compared to someone like Olmo. And right, so shout out Gula as well. I speak about Kobbie Mainoo as one of the teenagers of the tournament. Like, Gula's certainly there as well. But he's produced those moments, and the goal against France is just insane, isn't it? Those 2 touches are 2 of the best touches I've ever seen in conjunction, like in all my days watching football.
So you've got you've got Mainoo, Ruiz,
Olmo,
and I've got Kroos, Ruiz, Olmo.
Yeah.
So get your votes in the comments.
So pretty similar there. I'm glad that I went for Mainoo, so we actually had a bit of a debate there.
Who do you want to start with on the forward line?
I mean, I feel like we've probably got quite similar forward lines as well. Shall we start on the right?
Let's do it.
Let's fawn over Lamine Yamal, shall we?
Player of the tournament?
Yeah, probably the player of the tournament.
I think he's got to be player of the tournament, to be honest. I think it's rare to be kind of lost for words, and I was kind of lost for words with that France goal. But his performances throughout the tournament as well. Big assist versus Germany. 2 other assists, so 3 in total. Becomes the youngest goal scorer in the history of the Euros. Youngest player to play in a semi-final, and he absolutely tears it up. It looks like a playground for him. He was absolutely brilliant. Only Conceição and David Ram have averaged more expected assists per 90 than him this tournament. And it's rare to just be like... Basically, it felt like the Messi and Ronaldo era was coming to an end, and it was Mbappe's time to really dominate for the next 10 years. But actually, Yamal's emergence means I'm just not sure that's going to happen. I'm just not sure that's going to happen.
He's 9 years younger than Mbappe.
9 years younger. The first World Cup that he'll probably clearly remember, I think, is the 2018 World Cup in Russia. He's playing against players that would have been his heroes growing up, and kind of embarrassing them on a pretty regular basis. I think he's been absolutely faultless, and happy birthday for yesterday. Lamine Yamal, he's now 17.
17.
Brilliant.
Madness. Absolute madness. That's the first World Cup that he would probably remember, given that we were both colleagues
working
by
at
that
Football
point.
Daily.
What? As I think George pointed out, he was 12 when COVID started. What on earth? And he's now
one of the best players in the world.
The biggest the name in football.
Do you want to hear one more stat?
Yeah, go on.
Guess this. So the goal he scored against France was the furthest out a goal has been scored in the Euros since 1988.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which seems unlikely.
That's mad, given the amount of screamers this tournament as
Yeah.
well.
That's
insane. It's kind of disappointing, if anything, because it wasn't that far out.
Yeah.
You know? It was far out, but not that far out.
We were debating whether Foden's effort that hit the post last night would have been further out. I think it would have been further out on distance.
Definitely,
it's wider out.
Definitely wider out. The technique on that was just brilliant as well. But yeah, what was I going to say about Yamal now? My mind has gone.
Sorry, I interrupted
No, it's all right. It's all right. I mean, first of all, I think what's mad is, you know, for a player so young to have, like, I don't know, it's just one tournament, it's a small sample size of games, but to already have this, like, inevitability about him. It's like, as soon as he cuts in, it's a bit like with Robin. Like, I was like, well, he'll do the same thing every time, but you can't stop it. It's like Yamal will cut in every time, and as much as you try to stop it, he will just put a perfect ball into the box.
Yeah.
And he's also, you know, I think he's up there for expected goals and shots this tournament as well. Like, it's just like we could just kind of pour over him forever, and, you know, you don't want to big up a young player to the point of, like, you know, like bigging him up too much, but he is just like he's the preeminent force in world football, and you know, I can only really compare it to seeing kind of Haaland burst onto the scene a few years ago. Like, even Mbappe, when he burst onto the scene, there was still something quite raw about him. Like, when Haaland broke onto the scene, it was like he already felt complete. Like, Yamal somehow already feels complete. Like, his decision making is just second to none, and it's not like we've just seen at this tournament. Like he was like that for Barcelona all throughout last season, but it just so happens that he's playing in. You know, Barcelona weren't the best team in Europe last season. Spain are the most impressive international team that we've seen in years, actually, in terms of their performance over the course of the tournament.
That's the thing. I put that on Twitter the other day, actually. Like, I don't think many of this current Spanish team would get into that peak 2008-2012 sort of era side. But I can't remember.
I think Yamal does, though.
Yamal might do. But, you know, Rodri has a claim, but then there's Busquets, there's Xabi Alonso. I don't think that many of them, you know, it's up for debate, but I don't think there's that many clear.
No.
But I have enjoyed watching Spain more than I think at any point. I think actually in Euro 2012, particularly in that final, they were really entertaining.
They were great, but they were really
World
boring
Cup,
before that.
2010 World Cup was a snooze fest from Spain. It really was. And I think this side have such a clear identity, and it is so different to previous Spain teams. It's been really, really refreshing. And I think we maybe missed a beat not predicting them to win this tournament, because you look at the sort of blend of what they've got in terms of that physicality in midfield with Rodri and Ruiz, and then some really high quality players coming off the bench, and players that have risen to the occasion with Spain in the past. Like, Ferran Torres has a much better scoring record for Spain than he does for his clubs. Morata, similar sort of story. Nico Williams coming off the season of his life. Yamal coming off his first season. Like, maybe we should have seen it.
Yeah, maybe we should. I think a lot of people slept on Spain.
My Portugal shout is not looking good.
Not aged well, has it? Not aged well, but. But nevertheless, I think they were always the other team aside from the four kind of favourites, weren't they? But yeah, like, I think we certainly should have seen it coming more. But I also just don't think anyone saw just how good Spain were going to be, and that, I think, leads on to my left wing pick. It is Nico Williams.
Has to be.
I think. Well, you say it has to be, but I think the harshest omission in this entire team, maybe aside from Kroos, is Jamal Musiala on the left.
Yeah.
Like, I think he was absolutely brilliant for Germany. You know, another young player who's backed up. Well, actually, not his easiest season at Bayern. I mean, it wasn't, you know, the easiest season at Bayern for a number of players, but. Yeah, I think he really announced himself on the international stage this tournament. Musiala, you know, scored really important goals and great goals as well. I think, if it wasn't for Nico Williams, I think it's just the combination of Yamal and Williams and how defining that's been to Spain's attack, which is why he's in there.
It was interesting hearing Williams say after the first game against Croatia, he was kind of berating himself, saying, I didn't back myself enough in that game. And you saw the way he came out against Italy and just gave Di Lorenzo one of the hardest nights of his career. And Di Lorenzo rarely looks like a mug. And
he's a good, very good defender.
Very solid defender, and has been very good going forward in the past for Napoli as well, but maybe isn't at the peak of his powers. But still, Nico Williams just really kind of embarrassed him. It was like playground stuff. And he's been so fun to watch, Nico Williams. Like, you know, in a kind of different way to Yamal, actually, because I think he's a little bit more unpredictable in some senses. But the runs he makes in behind, the space that he's created for other players, the constant threat, the constant probing, I think he's been absolutely electric. He's my left winger.
Yeah, same.
Who's your striker, though?
So striker is a tough one because there weren't many out there. And
are you going our Lord and Saviour Harry Kane?
no, sadly not. Although it's 3 goals. Can't argue it too much. But no, Harry Kane's just hasn't had a particular in terms of his all-round play. He's just
he looks 30%.
He's not been involved much, has he? But it doesn't matter because he's going to lift the trophy tonight, and it's going to be all good. It's going to be all good, everyone. And no, I'm not cursing anything. It's just pure vibes. You just got to enjoy it.
Notice how the Critchley curse isn't getting involved.
You're not getting involved at all. Yeah. But
I just don't want to be blamed. I've been blamed for England losing the 2019 Rugby World Cup final. That still haunts me.
That's still I mean, the thing is, even if we do lose tonight, and people, I don't know, some people in the comments blame me or whatever, I don't care. Like, 'cause it doesn't matter ultimately. I'm not that superstitious when it comes to football, and you just got to enjoy it. Just got to enjoy it. It may never happen again. Kai Havertz I've gone for as my centre forward.
Big
Kai Havertz. I just think he had a really good tournament, and he had to. There was pressure on him. Home Euros. Obviously coming off an impressive season at Arsenal, but he has faced so much scrutiny at so many points in his career since leaving Germany back in 2020 when he was incredibly young, and first of all to kind of prove the doubters wrong after a big money move to Arsenal, and then to lead the line, I think incredibly admirably. I think only Mbappe and Ronaldo took more shots than him in this tournament. I think he racked up the second best non-penalty expected goals per 90 rate of I think it's only Brielle and Bolo of players who actually played significant minutes who managed more than him. And obviously his 2 goals were from the spot, but they less so against Scotland, but certainly in that semi-final against Denmark, in a really
quarter-final against Denmark. Last 16.
Last 16. Sorry.
Yeah, we're both right.
Sorry. Both got our heads slightly in the clouds. But in that last 16 against Denmark, in what was probably the most tumultuous 2-minute period of this entire tournament, after the incredibly marginal offside call, followed by the incredibly harsh handball, for Havertz to step up and take the quality of penalty he did in that moment was exceptional, and just his all-round play was great, and helped allow Wirtz and Musiala to shine in a similar way. I think that Morata has allowed Nico Williams and Yamal to shine. I think he had a really, really good tournament. Really, really good tournament. There are probably a couple of other shouts, but there wasn't really necessarily an outstanding lone number 9.
Yeah,
I think I guess Mikodatse.
Yeah, I was going to mention him
Georgia.
For sure.
Like, it deserves a shout as well.
Portugal game, he was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Georgia, only qualified for this tournament through the Nations League. I think they beat Greece in the playoff final for their place here. Yeah, I think they were sensational. That was a great performance. Him and Kavisha in that game against Portugal. That was so much fun. He definitely deserves a shout. I've cheated slightly. I played a player that didn't actually play in the central. I've picked someone that played on the left, Cody Gakpo. Cheating. It's cheeky, but he is a striker at points. He can play up there. But I honestly didn't even consider Havertz. But I probably should have. I think you make a fair claim. Although he must have underperformed his XG quite dramatically.
Yeah, he did. I think he had the highest. I think he had the highest XG total in the tournament, but that was including 2 penalties.
Yeah, I do get it.
So, yeah.
But I mean, Gakpo finishing off with 3 goals, 1 assist. I thought he was very quiet last night, to be honest, against England, which doesn't really make my claim that strong. But I'm interested to know who you guys go for in the comments, because I was really struggling with number 9s. I didn't think it was a clear choice. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, Cody Gakpo, against Romania in the last 16, which is kind of when, people forget Netherlands finished 3rd in their group. Like, they were under pressure going into that last 16 game, and they played really well in that. Cody Gakpo was sensational in that. 2 dribbles, 3 key passes, 4 shots, got a goal and an assist. And it continues a record for the Dutch in major international tournaments, which is getting pretty impressive, because he scored 3 and 5 at the World Cup in Qatar as well. Look, he had a difficult season at Liverpool last year, very much sort of 5th choice there amongst their forwards, 12 for minutes played in the league there, only ended up with 8 goals in the Premier League, despite playing, I think, 35 games, but only 17 of those were starts. Very much a bit part player at Liverpool. Let's see what happens with Arne Slot going there now. But Cody Gakpo, he was my best best of the lot, really, I thought. Didn't even play in that position, though. So, I mean, I do feel a bit dodgy. Was there... it doesn't feel like there's anyone else, really.
Nothing, no.
Lukaku, Ronaldo.
Nothing.
Mbappe, definitely not.
Yeah.
Kalamwani. No, I think that's just about it.
That's it.
Guys, those are our team of the tournament, or our teams of the tournament. Which ones did you prefer, myself or Mikey's? We'll maybe put them on screen now, or maybe in the comments at least. Get voting. What changes would you like to see? And what are your predictions for tonight's game as well? Mikey is fully backing the boys. Score.
Oh, my God. You're going to make me do it.
It's cruel.
2-2, and it goes to pens and England win.
Wow.
Pens. Yeah.
Oh, my days. Head or heart, head or heart. I'll go with I'll just say my heart's opinion.
Yeah. Your heart's opinion?
Yeah, my heart's opinion. It's got a lot of thoughts down there. I'm going to go 2-1 England again. But I don't truly believe it. But I want to. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens, guys.
We made it to the final. You can't ask much more.
Absolutely. Either way, we will be with you in some shape or form. Maybe just in body on Monday Vibes tomorrow. So look forward to that. We'll probably be a little bit hungover, I would have thought. But thank you so much for watching Sunday Vibes for this week. Make sure you like the video, comment, etc. And we will catch you tomorrow. Come on, the boys.